Failing in life does not mean failure. It's about failing and getting back up. The point is not to hear about how wonderful their life is, because it's to show all of us and all of you who think that, oh, that looks so easy. It's not. It's about failing and going again, and failing and going again, and never giving up.
Whole team limitless. Never settle, we above. Whole crowd showing love. Yeah, overcame when they couldn't believe. Hard sweat, tears, blood on the leaves. Opposition.
Today we are very fortunate to have two amazing people. Bryce Hall, who's one of the world's most famous people, if not the most famous, and Brad the Bull Baskin. Not only comes from an incredibly known family, the Baskin-Robbins family, but been a top commercial broker, a top residential broker, obviously now manages Bryce Hall, won top bodybuilding contest. We're going to learn all about his success and failures as well. Thank you for being on the show, guys. So we've had some really interesting guests. We just heard from Nigel Lithgow, who I think you know, who created American Idol and So You Think You Can Dance, and he really shared some deep failure with us. And part of why I think this was a really exciting show for us is not only you're like my little brother. I feel like we've known you since, I think I've known you since you were 18. And
19.
Been working together. And Brad and I have known each other literally since we were 13. For me, what I see the most and what I hear the most, and as we do this show, as people reach out, a lot of young people, especially on social media, they feel like failures because they see all this stuff that looks like it's happening so easy. They see you and others like you who, in their mind, they're just posting and all of a sudden they've got 5 million people and they're getting brand deals and they're getting paid and you got a fast car and a cool house and parties and, hot girls and, oh, what a life, and why don't I have that? And, we've been touching even on mental health on the show and how it leads to even like a low self-esteem and people who really question themselves a lot. And I think, coming on this show, my hope is that you being in that peer group and you being arguably one of the most famous people in the world, and maybe not even arguably, but being obviously having had so much success at such a young age, yet you've gone through incredible resistance, and you've been resilient, and you've climbed mountaintops to get here. And I don't think people ever see that. They just see Bryce is just, partying and having fun and making money and that's it, right? Bryce, what I kind of have started with in the past, I think I'd love to hear from you is, do you remember your first major failure? In your mind, the thing that was like, it could be as a kid, it could be in your young adulthood, whatever, but that really impacted your life and that made you change the way you see things?
I think my first major failure was documented. It was that loss against Austin McBroom.
That was your first you don't remember
the first major failure that changed my life, I think.
So I want to definitely come to that, because that's like a failure in front of the whole world, right? And that is a whole other thing that I don't think people even understand. But do you remember, obviously before that, you became a big influencer and you were doing very well, and you were part of the original Hype House, and you were Sway House. I'm sorry, Sway House, Hype House.
We're not Hype House. Yeah.
Well, we had both of them, so it was like, to me, you guys were all our kids. You were all my kids. I had to get out of trouble at some point or another. But before that, you didn't just wake up one morning and be like, oh, now I'm famous and making money. What was your childhood like? Tell me, how did you get into it? Let's start there. Maybe we'll be able to find some.
Grew up, didn't have many friends in high school, so I started live streaming to talk to people.
So you weren't because everybody thinks you were the popular kid.
Far from it.
No?
Far from the popular kid. So I started live streaming on a platform because I had nobody to just talk to and chop it up with. So I would start these live streams on a platform called I'd have 4 or 5 people in my live streams. I remember it. And I would just be talking to them, not doing anything entertaining. And then it got up to, I think, 20 to 30 viewers. And I started doing stupid stuff like prank calls, jumping off of shit, just doing weird athletic things. It gradually kept growing. And I didn't realize that I could make a career out of it, but it was just fun for me to do, to just talk to people, rant, talk shit, just do everything that I wanted to do in high school, but I couldn't because I really was that nerdy kid that nobody would listen to.
So this is this is to me the epitome of failure, because you started as a kid, but you still are a kid. So,
24 isn't really a kid.
No, but to me, you're a kid. To us, you're a kid. You're a man. I'm just kidding.
I'm like a grown man now.
You're like a man kid man.
Yeah. No.
We're gonna
that's
cut all
not-
that out.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
cut all that. 'Cause I'm a man.
You're my son, literally.
No,
son.
it's not even a thing.
Both
It's
our sons?
crazy. It's crazy.
At least my little brother. You're my little brother.
You guys are my dads.
We should talk about
together?
like schooled you.
No,
in the,
no, that's-
think about
that's
we
not a
schooled
thing.
you at the pool with the barbells.
Nobody even needs to know about.
Okay, good. So I didn't think anybody wanted to know about that.
What are we talking about?
So anyway, we're back to like, so here you are. Everybody sees Bryce Hall, the most popular, the coolest, you know, kind of the bad boy, getting a lot of fights, you know, but you have a great time, you love to party, and you're so popular. But you just, as you said, you had no friends in high school, so you were not popular. It was not being popular.
Yeah.
And it was I'll call it failure, which is what we see when we say failure. It doesn't mean we've failed at life. It means we had a failure that leads us to success, right? So it was like kind of failing at being popular and you wanting that led you to start what has become and was the catalyst to the most success in your life. Is it fair to say that?
I guess I didn't really overanalyze it like that, but yeah.
And like, do you remember when you first did it? Was it like, were you lonely and you just felt like you didn't have friends and this was like a way to connect with people because you just wanted to have friends in your life?
That's exactly what it was.
Can you tell me how that felt?
Honestly, once I started live streaming, I felt better.
Like
But
therapeutic?
when I didn't have that that alternative, it was like kind of just overthinking in my head all the time.
And can you tell us, like, it's tough because a lot of high school kids hopefully are going to be watching this who are, you know, I wasn't the most popular kid in high school. Brad was, actually. Brad was like the most popular kid in high school.
No.
That explains a lot.
He was, actually.
I had a good high school experience.
But no, but like a lot of people struggle with that and they don't have friends and they feel like, I think on social media, everybody seems like they're so popular and, oh, look at all these friends and great stuff. But like, you know, people see you and it's hard to imagine that you didn't have friends. So like, I think a lot of people would want to hear from you, like how that felt and, you know, how you got through it. And, you know, it might be inspirational to help those people too who are in that position right now.
I mean, honestly, I thought it was the end of the world while I was in high school. And once I left high school, I realized how small it was. None of their opinions matter at all. You pass them and then you never hear about them again. Unless you go like to college with them and you have them for another like 4 years, but you never even talk to these people. Maybe you see them at these 10-year reunions, 20-year reunions, but you never see these people ever again after high school. So like going back, if I could go back in high school, I wish I was more like, I don't give a fuck. I cared so much about what these high schoolers were saying about me and doing to me. There was no closure where I could just look at these guys and say like, fuck you, I don't care about you.
Well, you can say it right now.
I think they see me now.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah.
You just did it. They say success is the best revenge, right? So that's an interesting one because you went through in high school what I didn't go through till I was like 40, which is, you know, I had to go through being like the top of, which we've talked a little bit about, in the top of Hollywood, like, you know, front page of every paper, you know, the youngest billionaire, all this, like, I mean, you name it, I was just to like literally having as we've talked about, corporate hostile takeover and the company going into a chapter, I had to put in chapter 11 and fought for 2 years to get it back. And every day just getting fucking shit on. And I remember waking up in the morning, like, and just feeling awful. And
Publicly, though. It was public.
And that's why this fight I can relate to, which we're going to come back to, was very public. But where I was going with this wasn't that, because I think I really want to, when we get to the Austin fight, like, I can sympathize a lot. But it took me going through that and then, like, being disconnected to realize I don't actually give a fuck. What I care about people who read the Hollywood Reporter, like, oh no. By the way, the same Hollywood Reporter that the year prior called me Showman of the Year and, you know, first $1 billion producer and had no problem taking my $5 or $10 or $15 million. No offense to Hollywood Reporter, we love you. Just saying, I could say Variety, Hollywood Reporter, I could say any outlet. With, you know, what sells, right? Stories sell. It took me that to wake up one day and be like, what do I care what these people think? They're not my friends. You know, if they were my friends, they would know the real story, and they're here. My friends are here. It's interesting. You actually learn that at such a young age, that it's like, it's a huge blessing. Because I wish I actually learned that earlier. When I just stopped giving a fuck is when my life got great. Feels good, right?
Yeah, not giving a fuck.
You still feel the same way? Like you just not give a fuck?
I care about my close circle, and that's about it.
Yeah, same. As you know. Brett, the bull. Still gonna figure out where the bull comes from, but you know,
I'll figure it out later.
right?
Sure, yeah.
Not the Hulk though.
No, that's again me.
Okay, so Brad, I mean, you know, you were obviously, as I said, I wasn't joking. He was very, very popular in high school, if not the most popular. You know, everybody kind of looked up to him. I remember. I mean, you were 1 year younger than me in school, right? But
Yeah.
you were. Tell me about your first failure. You remember? Like, was it as a kid? Was it older? Because you had a, you know, to at least as a high schooler, I remember seeing you thinking like, wow, he's got it made.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, like, you know, I got bullied in like summer camp. This kid Jared used to like harass me so badly. I had a stomach ache every day going to camp. I'll never forget that. Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. But yeah, one day I just decided to beat his ass. So that went away. But
He's like, my
yeah.
worst failures, I didn't get to fuck this one girl.
No, that's no one's talking like that, man. No one's doing that. Yeah, no. Actually, the most embarrassing thing for me, like really early on, was in 7th grade. I tried out for the basketball team at Brentwood, and yeah, didn't make it.
Weren't you on the basketball team?
Yeah, I played on the varsity team later on, but 7th grade I didn't make it. And it was like, you know, you're trying to establish yourself in high school, and you know, I thought I was this great athlete. You know, among my friends, I was, but then to try out for a team with this whole group of new guys that you're hanging out with, and my friend group that I had formed, and to get cut from the team, it was just like devastating.
And then you came back and became like one of the best athletes.
I mean, it definitely made me practice a lot and get better. Yeah.
What about like in life? Like you and I, obviously you're a little bit older than Bryce. Some could say
A couple of years.
Some could say you're his daddy.
Wow.
No one says daddy.
No one says
Daddy's not a thing.
That's
at all.
crazy.
No, I'm joking. What? But
Dad, yeah.
Dad. Okay.
No.
Some say you're his dad.
Yeah, no. So there's this company, Entertainer, that my cousin Richard Baskin started. It was basically Netflix before Netflix. It was video on demand. We had all the big studios involved, had all their library of content, and actually, it's funny. That's where I ran into you again, but I'll get back to that. But yeah, so I actually dropped out of school to work with him. Ran into him in Brentwood at dinner. He said, "Hey, come work with me." Quit the job. I was the 4th employee. Got up to 130 employees. We were crushing it, talking about going public, and then just it didn't work out. You know, the studio started competing against us with MovieFly. Sony did that, and all sorts of other platforms. And yeah, so the funding just kind of dried up. And I lost my job 4 days before my wedding. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it was rough. It was really bad. So I was on my honeymoon, actually. We were in Bali, and the whole thing I was thinking about was just like, what am I going to do when I get back? Now I'm married. I have to make a living and figure this out really quickly. So we ended up actually leaving early, because I couldn't
You're
relax.
stressed?
I was just crushed, and I just didn't feel like a man. It's like so emasculating for me to get married and just all of a sudden just not know where anything was going to come from,
That's tough. That'd be really tough. Can't even imagine. So you want to go back to like you were talking about one of the things that really got you to where you were was somewhat of a fluke by the fact that you didn't have friends and you weren't popular in high school, and you wanted to make friends, and at the same time you also were going through this, I don't want to call it bullying, but you just said that people were saying and doing things that were not cool, basically. Tell me like what those were. Do you remember?
So many years ago. I mean, saying a lot of, it's like the high school insults that would get under your skin because you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old. You know, the you're gay, like, oh, you're stupid, you're unpopular, you have no friends, like, that's why nobody likes you, like those types of things. But then I started social media when I was 14 years old,
right,
because again, I had no friends. So every single time, are you laughing at my
Are
story?
you actually laughing at let's redo that without him laughing.
When you said
down.
again, I had
No,
no
we're gonna-
friends.
But it's good. But Brett, don't laugh at that. It's not good.
That's crazy.
Don't laugh at that.
I'm gonna say it again.
Can you say it
I'm gonna
again and
say-
not have him laugh? I'm
gonna say it
Actually,
again.
we're on a very serious thing here.
I'm gonna open up. You cannot laugh when I'm talking about my my bullying.
This
not gonna
is
laugh.
part of the problem of having the popular kid in
Yeah, it's
in
like
our
he's
podcast.
already
I was
getting
wanna
back
bully
into
him.
his old habits.
Yeah.
He's getting back into his.
He's gonna start.
"Ah, true.
He's gonna be like, "You're gay."
All right, so as I
don't
was
say
saying,
that.
these people were calling me names, and they would be filming me because I would do like social media back then and I was starting to gain traction. Would film me in the hallways, you know, the typical shoulder check, knock my shit out of my hand, make me pick it up. Like it was like literally to a T, high school bully, movie edition, like that type of thing. And then some days I really, we used to go into lunch and we'd have to like, you know, pick our tables and, you know, sit at our group of friends' tables. Like we would pick our tables. I didn't have that, so I would eat my food in the bathroom some days. So gross, but yeah, I would eat my food, the cafeteria food, in the bathroom. It smelled like shit.
That's I mean, sucks, but it's really interesting because you're probably like a huge. It'd be even more of an inspiration and hope for people to hear that, because you being, you know, so popular now. I mean, what do you have, 50 million social media followers?
Across the board?
Yeah.
You also have a table named after you at a few restaurants.
Yeah,
so
that's actually pretty sick.
I mean,
sort of a
you also are a
different vibe.
movie star now. You're a boxing pro. I'm just saying, but being so popular, and like you are kind of synonymous with popularity and cool kid, you know. And so I think for a lot of the world out there, like that failure, like failing at being cool, kind of drove you to become the coolest person in the world. Like, and that's, if someone asks, you know, someone brings up Bryce Hall, they're like, oh, that's that like kind of that social media punk cool kid. Like, you know, people see you as that. It's so funny because I know you so well, and you're like the sweetest guy in the world. And like people are like, oh, that's like pricky guy, right? Like he was like always getting in fights and, you know, parties. And I'm like, yeah, no, but yeah, I get, yes, that's the guy.
Yes,
you know?
that's 100% him.
But it's funny because like, so the very guy people think you are, which you're not, but you are kind of popular for, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of what led you to become this without meaning to. Is that like fair to say?
Which is that? Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah.
Right? If you think about it, like, I mean, hopefully we're calming down on them, but
Oh,
you do get in
100%.
fights. You do get in fights a lot. You don't. You party. You
Used to, yeah.
You do. You kind of sometimes when you get drunk, you use names against people for fun. And but no. But honestly, I'm saying the character you became, because that's really what it is in social media, right? It's somewhat of a character, because I know you in real life, and the character the world thinks they see with you. Right. And it's the same thing with actors, right? Acting's acting. Social media is a little more real, but this helped you craft yourself and craft your character. You kind of became who you wanted to be somewhat. That it's interesting because when I hear like, oh, this is what was happening to me. And then I'm like, well, look at you now. Like you kind of decided, well, I'm going to go take a camera and create my own life. And you did.
Started off crazy and then formed into, you said it best, I formed what I wanted to be, which is the most authentic version of myself on social media and on camera at all times.
What do you think drives you the most of that? So like, it's so interesting because, you know, I didn't even know this part about you. And I know you and I know each other as well as anyone. And like, you know, so like underneath all this is this, I mean, I have the same, like, there's almost this scared kid that like eventually had to just say, fuck it. But like, I don't like what's here. And I say, if you can't change what's out here, change what's here, right? I said that to my 8-year-old this morning. He's like, I don't like school, you know, but what 8-year-old does, right? But I actually said that to him. I said, you know, Tommy loves you.
Who
you know?
likes school?
You're right. I said, Tommy, listen, the problem is you're going to go to school. And they say, if you can't change what's out here, change what's in here. So we got to figure out how to make you like school. So you did that. And you did it in a way that like, I mean, like you crushed and you're showing the world, you became who you wanted to be. What advice do you give people in that? Like people who are struggling, a lot of people at that age, especially think it's the end of the world. I mean, you know, we have, I think like some of the stats I've been reading, teen suicides are at an all-time high, depression is super high. People are bombed in this world, you know, people feel very lonely. And the more that social media grows, you know, kind of ironically, the more lonely they get, because you look at these pretty pictures all day long and you scroll through your feed and you see all these, you know, perfect looking pictures, and people like to Photoshop their pictures and look at my Lamborghini or my Bentley and how fun my life is. And we all know that's set up, but it's kind of, you still feel it. And kids especially feel like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. Like, what advice would you give for those people right now who are feeling lonely or getting picked on, or maybe not even kids, maybe they're just feeling like a failure in life?
I think I wouldn't have great advice, but I would say take what I say with a grain of salt. number one thing, the one thing that was stopping me from personal, nice Brad.
Why you
Brad
nice Brad? How's that?
Brad shakes these
Brad
things
did
and then
that. By the way,
hangs
That's
why
my
they call
latest
him
failure.
That's why they call him Brad the Bull. You see, he blew up my bucked up.
That is so insane.
Bro, how
Why
am
do
I,
you keep
how am I
shaking
blamed
He did
for
this
that?
to Bryce, just so you guys know.
So crazy.
We're going to keep rolling through this, and while they're bringing me a napkin, but Bryce did this to Brad earlier. Like literally right before the show.
Yeah, Bryce did it to me.
Brad did it to Bryce. I opened one of these
Brad
and
handed it
just
to Bryce and it
splurted
blew up
over me.
all over him, and he literally, you've been waiting to do that to me the whole show.
Some random person shook it too much, and you guys are being dicks and blaming me.
It sat there for 2 hours. The only person near it, and I saw his hand the whole time, was you.
Man, he still has those bullying tendencies. Anyways, the number one thing that was stopping me was caring about people's opinions, criticism, and it was getting in my head. And it was almost like every single time somebody would criticize me, I would think in my head, is that true? I was questioning myself. And once I pushed out all of that, realized in my head, these people's opinions don't actually matter, that's when I started succeeding and believing in myself more than anyone on earth would believe in me. Nobody believed in me other than my mom at the time. So that was my personal experience. It was when I stopped caring about what people were saying about me, questioning me, criticizing me.
You know, you're pretty wise for your years. That's like, I'd give the same advice at my age. I hope people take that to heart, because coming from you, you know, young people need to hear that, because at this point in my life, like I said, I woke up one day closer to 40. It's like, what do I give a fuck about these people? Whether it could have been the most famous actor, it could have been producer or director or whatever, somebody's reading a paper, and I was like, they don't matter to me. Why do I even care what they say? Like, I don't. And that's when my life got so free and everything opened up. And that leads me to an interesting one, because, by the way, I remember Entertainer, Brad, before we move on, because I hadn't seen you in like 10 years.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah, that's when I bumped into you for the first time in forever. So I was doing like the information technology stuff, and I was setting up the demos. I remember Richard and John Taplin, they said to me, we got a really big investor coming in today. If this goes wrong, it's your ass. This demo has to go amazing. So I said, okay, cool. I got with a huge investor. I said, great. So I got the whole thing ready. I'm kind of behind the scenes, making sure it's working. And you walk in. I was like, fuck, man. I was like, this guy's my age. How is he such a huge investor? I'm making like a minimum wage here at my own cousin's company. Like, oh, what an L. Like this dude's killing it. So yeah, that's when we reconnected. Actually,
That was my hedge fund days.
yeah.
That was
Which, by the way, in Santa Barbara, when we went to school together at UCSB, I think it was like your second year as my first year, and you were studying numbers and putting together this prospectus and talking to me about it, and I was just more interested in smoking weed and like chasing girls at the time, and you were killing it, already starting this hedge fund.
Yeah, I launched it. That was when I launched it, right at SB, and I remember when I saw you. That was like maybe 1999 or 2000.
Yeah.
And I remember I was crushing it. And then September 11th, 2001 hit, and I'd bought my first like mega estate and loved it, and I had a Ferrari, and I did everything, 21-year-old with too much money does, and then I cut to like, I moved it into a one bedroom that I didn't know how I was going to pay my $3,000 rent, because I'd taken everything I made and put it back into my own hedge fund, and then the market completely collapsed on September 11th.
So that was your first big L?
Yeah, that was in business, I'd say my very first big loss for me was the hedge fund. But yeah, what's funny is, so we invested in private equity. We invested, and this is a really good thing for like long term. And I always tell people this story. So we were originally in a public markets. I was into trading options, and I decided in 1999, I wrote a letter out to my investors saying the public markets are too volatile. We're going to focus on private companies. So we invested across like biotech and e-commerce and a bunch of other stuff. And when the market collapsed in 2001 with 9/11 happening, private equity dried up. So all these companies that were going to go public that we had in our portfolio, and we were just crushing it. I had the biggest investors in my hedge fund. I was 21, and I had everybody from Kirk Kerkorian to Jerry Bruckheimer to Michael J. Fox to Jake Bloom. These are the biggest people in Hollywood were backing me. Johnny Depp, you name it. And I raised $250 million at 21. I actually asked my dad if I could borrow $50,000 to start this hedge fund, and he fell out of his chair laughing. He was like, "Who's going to give a 21-year-old any money?" And I was like, do it myself. I downloaded at the time there wasn't a word hedge fund. So I downloaded a limited partnership agreement offline or online and like rewrote it myself and then called my dad's lawyer. I was like, hey, this lawyer wrote this prospectus for me. And I just was wondering if you could take a look. He calls me, he's like, who wrote that? I was like, wow. He's like, because half of it's really good and the other half is like gibberish. I was like,
He should be disbarred.
It's this lawyer. And he's like, all right, I'll rewrite it for you for 10 grand. I had to go like piece 10 grand together and cut to a year later, I'd raised 250 million. And the interesting thing about that though, is so I owned half the hedge fund. So I'd taken all the profits I was making and put it back in. And when 9/11 hit, all these companies needed to raise money and there was no money. Like everything had dried up. And so they were going to have to do down rounds. They weren't going to go public. Things that were going to sell weren't going to sell. And so I remember I went to my dad. I was like, what should I do? And he said, you need to take what you own, because I owned half the fund, and give it to your investors. I was like, that's all I have. But I was like, all you have is your name. And I was like, fair point. Okay. So I gave back almost everything I had and moved into a 1-bedroom, $3,000 rent. I was thinking about getting my physics degree, which is what ended up leading me in the film business. I'll come back to that later. But this is what was so crazy. If you cut now, that was 2001. We're now in 2023. Between 2015 and last year, every single company that was in the hedge fund sold or went public at a profit for investors. 20-something years later. How crazy is that? I went, one of the guys who was my investor is my eye doctor. He's one of the top eye doctors in the world, older gentleman. I went to see him about a year and a half ago, right after one of our companies sold. He's like, Ryan, he's like, what's really funny? He goes, I told my wife, we got this check from this company that I co-founded that was called Precash. It was later renamed Noventis. And it was PayPal before PayPal was around, basically. I found a way to reverse engineer with another guy the Visa system so we could actually send money, like instead of charging a credit card, because there's no way to send digital money, you'd give them a card that we made that used the Visa system and give them cash at like 7-Eleven. And then it would be on the card and you could send it anywhere. And so it was PayPal, but before PayPal, it sold for like $400 million to WEX a couple of years ago. And he said, I just got this $1.5 million check and I couldn't even find my original documents because I guess I'd put it, he goes, later I found in my file of like failed investments. And he's like, I had to pull it back out. And then I went back in to get my stuff picked up they ordered for me 3 months later. And they're like, oh, he's not here. This other doctor can see you. I was like, well, no, I've been seeing him for 20 years. They're like, oh no, he's retired. I'm like,
you retired him?
Yeah. But, I'm so happy for all the investors, they made money. But that was to me, like, if there was ever a lesson of long-term life goals, like imagine that 20 years later and every one of those companies sold and made money. And like, I thought my life was over, dude. I was like, had my first lawsuit. I was like, which we'll talk about in a minute, lost what I thought was everything, right? You have a big house, a Ferrari, going out to Mr. Chow's every night. And then all of a sudden it's like, shit, I hope I can find $20 in the couch to buy pizza, But so I want to cut a little forward to, kind of a big part of your life and maybe in between. So you became like one of the biggest on TikTok. Before we get to your fight, was there ever a time that you're like, I made it. Oh, this is amazing. And then something happened where you're like, oh shit, it's over before the boxing?
When I thought I like officially made it, like in my mind, I had $500,000 in the bank. That's when I was like, okay, I'm set. And then the thing that hit me was taxes. I was like, after I spent a shit ton of that money, I got hit with taxes, having to pay like 45%, 40%. I was like, oh my God, I'm broke again. That was so fast.
Everyone takes that loss.
Yeah.
That was like the eye opener. I was like, holy shit. But then made a bunch of money back.
We worried at that moment. We thought like, oh shit, I'm not going to make any money again.
No, this was like a peak of everything.
Oh, okay.
Like, so we were just money was not a problem.
No, you're not at the peak yet.
Yeah, there was not like a problem or like a worry yet.
So before the fight, like in social media, there was ever a time when you were like, oh, I just did something that's going to like cancel me? Because in your career, in your industry, that's the biggest concern is you say something so that you didn't mean to say, right? But like people just got to say, oh, we can't sponsor you anymore, or we can't have it in our platform.
Yeah, this was also like when I was on the come up. A lot of things that I would do publicly would be spun to make it sound like I was being like a piece of shit. So that's when immediately, like, I was like, oh, this is just like high school. Like, it's just a bunch of like liars that completely manipulate the truth to make it get more, instead of attention in high school, it's more attention in real world. It's like, oh, okay, so for example, I'm out, like, just with some of my friends. There's a few girls there. Paparazzi spins it. Bryce Hall cheating on Addison Rae with girls at table. Like, it was like that type of stuff where I was like, oh my God, this is literally high school. This is like real life high school. It's just one big giant high school, like my little generation of social media people.
How'd that feel?
It pissed me off. So there's like compilations of me just going off on paparazzi. Like,
So
kind of just
were you
being,
pissed at the paparazzi, or were you pissed at the people and the paparazzi was the way to talk to people?
yeah, I hated the paparazzi.
Yeah.
I literally hate people that lie to get views.
Yeah, I've lived that.
Yeah. Anyone that has to lie to get views or money is just pathetic scum. I hate them.
I think we all know someone like that. But
I'm currently in a lawsuit, actually, because of a liar, but lost that one. Super sick.
how much you lose?
Million.
Jesus.
Isn't that crazy? You can just say whatever you want about like anybody and you can just get paid off of it.
So yeah, that's something, obviously, in my business, being in finance and film and tech, like, there's a lot of lawsuits. And I can tell you that the downside of our legal system, which is something that I hope one day we'll address. One, you can say anything about anybody. It's called the litigation privilege, and it doesn't have to be true. As long as you put it into a legal brief that you file with the court, you're basically protected. Nobody can really go after you and say, anything. They can say the craziest things they want.
Oh yeah,
And,
I know.
And there's nothing you could do. I remember when I got first lawsuits and they'd say, he did this and that and called me every bad name in the book, because that's also what they do in lawsuits, is they make it
They
sound
have to make it
as
sound
bad
way
as
worse,
possible.
yeah.
And anybody who's in business knows that. But it's funny because my foray with social media, which is not big, but I learned that Wikipedia is like not real. And when I found that out, which was like, it's kind of this anti-democratic run by this, basically, as you said, it's like a group of kids who don't get paid, but it's a popularity contest. And when someone decided they wanted to manipulate my Wikipedia, 7 million people basically got called to convene and decide, let's pull out every line we could out of any lawsuit he ever had that's bad about him and make that his Wikipedia. And I didn't know you could even change Wikipedia. So I don't know how I got a page when I was, running the studio, and it was a pretty accurate description. I remember reading it, like, it was accurate about the number of movies I made, and it had highs and lows. I had a DUI in 2005. It mentioned that, and, but it wasn't like particularly. It was fairly positive because I'd done a lot with my life. I talked a lot about, very focused on charity, and then all of a sudden, within like a month, I watched it line by line just get destroyed. To be like, it reads like, this guy's a criminal. Like, what the hell? And I remember reading this, going, what a bad dude I am. Like, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a popularity contest, and like,
You guys have targets on your back, though. I mean, when you're high flying in front of the world, people come after you.
oh yeah.
Yeah, no, the words listed in the lawsuit against me, I had to Google because I didn't know what any of these words meant.
Like
what's
things
the
they were
worst?
saying that you had said?
Yeah, the words that I was saying that I said to this person, right? I had to Google them. I'm like, what the fuck is this word? And I had to Google it. And I was like, oh, it's a derogatory term. Okay.
That's
From the 1940s. Makes sense. That's what I said. Yeah.
that's so stupid. Could we? You allowed to say what the term is? Or
No, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the term is, it was used widely, like very, very popular in the 1960s, 1940s. But I said it in today's age to this guy.
Oh yeah, it's not.
But then also what was listed was all my past controversies, and then he was labeled as like this saint.
that's basically the way my Wikipedia
And I
reads.
lost, which
Yeah.
is so stupid.
So first of all, I'll come back to your loss, because you're going to get sued again, just so you know. Like, you're young. My first lawsuit was 24. I thought my life was over. I remember when I got sued. You think yours is bad. I want to tell you the teeny story, and then I want to come to that, and then I want to actually talk a little bit about your boxing, and want Brad to jump in on some stuff here. But so when my hedge fund collapsed, one of my bigger investors was a very well-known PR guy, and he had about $6 million in the fund. And I went and sat down with all my investors one-on-one and said, look, I'm going to shut it down, and here's what's happening. And he said to me, look, I don't want to hurt you, at all. But like the companies that you were on, that you like helped create and we invested in, you're on the boards and they have insurance. He was literally like, so like, I can do this like private lawsuit against you through an arbitration, it's called, which I'd never heard of. And then like, if we don't do any discovery, it's just kind of like if the arbitrator finds against you, I'll release you, so I won't go after you for anything. And I'll just go try and get it from the insurance if I lose. And I was like, and I had no money. And I went to a lawyer. It was the first time I ever had to speak to a litigator. And he was like, I mean, this is a really good deal for you. Like, at the end of the day, like if he's gonna sue you, he's basically saying, even if I win, I'm not gonna go after you, and you don't have to spend money to defend yourself. It's just like you're just gonna go into a one-day trial that's private, and it's not. There's no press on it. It's like you should just do it. So I think it took me like a year to pay off that lawyer. It was like $50,000. I was paying him like $500 a month. I'm like, this will be easy, because what he sued me for was he said I failed to disclose that our fund was investing in private companies fully and not in public, which is interesting because had we invested in public, the whole market collapsed, as most people know from 9/11. So he would have actually lost everything. But it was like, okay, so we went into this arbitration. I'm thinking there's no way someone's going to win on him just saying that and me saying that. We walk in and his lawyer bear hugs the arbitrator being our judge. And the arbitrator's like, I have these pictures of me, you, and your dad fishing. And they
That's
just
how
start
you know you lost.
And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, and through listening, it turns out this lawyer's dad was at the time was the Supreme Court Justice of California. And they like picked this arbitrator that they knew and loved. And it was just me saying, look, I in fact, the only document I had in there was the monthly statements that we sent to him. And right on the top, it said % in equity, private, and % in public. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know how, this is from his file. At the very top, like it says 78% private equity or whatever it was. And the judge literally made a finding,
On the spot.
no, like basically
Welcome
within
to
a day.
the judicial system.
Yeah.
America's amazing.
So in your case, which I happen to know, is you have to show up to court, Bryce.
Yeah.
Right. You learned that the hard way.
Yep.
You didn't actually lose because they found against you that you actually said these things.
Yeah.
You learned what a default judgment is.
Yep. Learn what that was.
You
the
want
hard way.
to tell us what that is?
Nah. I don't want to like.
I say when
Get into that.
you don't show up to court for a certain period of time, the judge eventually gets pissed off enough and just says, "Fine, we're granting it as if you didn't defend yourself."
To be fair, I didn't know the date. It wasn't like I just knew the date and then I was like, I didn't show up.
I think it's better than just losing though the actual case. At least you just it was like
I lost because I didn't know the date.
It was like more baller status for you to be like, I just didn't care, so I didn't go to court. So
Yeah.
let's go to your fight for a minute. So you decided to get into boxing. I remember I actually came to you and tried to get you to box for us after I did the Jake Paul fight. And you're like, no, I got this big gig. I remember it was a big number you were getting. And I was like, wow, it's a big number. Like, and you fought Austin McBroom, and I think it was the most watched fight probably in the world. Social Gloves was YouTube versus TikTok. And I remember you were very confident you were going to win, both to your friends and in front of the whole world. And when I say the whole world, probably like everybody under 26 watched that fight for sure, and a lot of people over. And you
Lost.
got knocked out.
I didn't get knocked out. That's crazy.
Technical knockout.
Not even.
I thought they called it a TKO.
He got pushed down, and it was McBroom's promotion. So.
No,
Did they call it a TKO?
It wasn't a push. It was he grabbed me, threw me on the ground like that, and then they waved it
But
off.
that's not the point. Is they called it a TKO to the world. Like the world was like, oh, Bryce Hall got knocked out,
Yeah.
and you became a meme overnight.
Yeah.
And for like a while, you were like the world's biggest meme.
Yeah. No, that was
The world's biggest is
no, I was
aggressive.
I'd say it was
Brother, my
close to
sound
it.
of me saying I'm not a boxer, I'm not a fighter, I think that has like 2 billion views.
People still yell that
There's
out.
8 billion people in the world. What the fuck is that?
That's a large
So what was that? First, tell us what that is for anybody that doesn't know you saying. What did you say?
After my boxing speech, and I lost, I was like, I got hit in the face a bunch, wasn't thinking straight, and I meant to say, I'm not a boxer, I never claimed to be a boxer, but I said I'm not a boxer, never claimed to be a fighter. But
yeah.
this entire thing, it's like, I've been fighting like since I was a kid. Like I was a wrestler, like I got into a lot of fights. So like the whole lead up of this fight, I was saying like, yo, I'm a fighter, I got his ass, like, And I didn't really take any of the
Like I've been in 40 street fights, right?
Yeah, which is like a factual thing. Like you guys can Google like my fights are all online. Like it's like a thing, which is not like something to be proud of. But it's like I don't let people like just step on me. Not now I do. That doesn't mean like come up to me and start talking shit. I'll have security, but but it's like.
So you wake up in the morning.
Biggest meme in the world.
You are the biggest meme in the world. You've just lost in front of the whole world. That's something you thought for sure you were going to win in. You were telling the world, I've been in 40 fights. I've won them all. I'm going to win this one. And not only did you lose, but you said something. You're like, oh shit, that came out of my mouth, and I can't take that back in. And try and explain it. And how'd you feel?
I felt like a failure. I felt embarrassed. So embarrassed.
Do you feel was that like in your mind the biggest failure of your life?
Yeah.
Was there ever a time you were like, I don't know if I can come back from this? Was that like your initial reaction?
I did not think that I couldn't come back from it.
But were you worried a little bit?
Worried in the sense where it's like no one would take me seriously, but not worried in the sense of this is going to define my career.
So tell me what it was like for you right after that. Like what you're feeling. Tell me as much as you remember. What were people treating you like? What was the high?
Every single time I'd go out in public, there'd be at least one. Hey, I'm not a boxer. I'm not a fighter. That's the not to be a fighter guy. It was like that every single time I would go out in public.
So you were I'm not be a fighter. I'm not a fighter guy.
I was the guy that people could point at and make fun of me, and I couldn't do anything about it.
So you're somewhat back in high school again.
Yep. On a way bigger scale, like way bigger bullying scale.
And that felt like shit, huh?
Oh yeah.
For all of us, tell us like what did you feel inside? Like what would you want to do? What was going through your mind? What were you feeling physically, mentally?
I felt small. I felt like I couldn't do anything because first I just got my ass kicked on camera. And second, if I did punch somebody in the face that was saying stupid shit, I'd get a lawsuit. It would be like a meme, like where I'd go out in public, people would just, like I went to this one party, some dude snatched my hat and I couldn't do anything about it because it's like, okay, this guy's going to sue me if I do anything. And if I fight him, it's like, oh, wow, you just fought like a random guy that's talking shit. Wow, Bryce can't control his anger. It was like always the narrative, like that I had anger issues. I'm just a normal guy. Like I'm a normal dude in my 20s and things do piss me off, surprisingly. Surprisingly, getting fucked with in public is annoying. Is it not?
No, it
is to everybody.
As a man, like it's not, it's like someone's fucking with you on multiple like occasions, like every single fucking day. It gets like to a point where it's like, I don't have anger issues. I would not say I have anger issues, but I do get annoyed. And I'm a normal person.
You have like rage sometimes?
Like randomly.
Induced?
No.
I'm just joking.
Just when I'm lifting weights.
That's what Logan Paul has rage issues.
Yeah.
Serious.
Well, that's because he's on roids.
I saw those veins on his arm.
Yeah, that's like a massive till.
He looked big.
Yeah.
He looked big at that fight.
He did.
Yeah. For me, I was like, I think we said earlier, I was like on top of the world, literally. And I couldn't have been more on top of the world. I was making 40 movies a year, 20 TV shows, you name it. And then all of a sudden I find myself in this hostile takeover, chapter 11. And there wasn't a day for a year probably where I was fighting to get the company back that there wasn't like the same article written, basically saying I was a piece of shit, more or less. In one of the Hollywood magazines, people like I remember one article went back to like high school and tried to be like they were doing this investigative piece, and everything they said was completely full of shit, which is the other downside of our legal system, as you know, is you basically can't sue someone for talking shit if you're what they call a public figure. Like, I'm sure you've come across this. Like,
yep.
People could say whatever the hell they want.
It's also the biggest problem with social media, though, too, is that every keyboard warrior in the world has a microphone that people listen to. So it's like you can just propagate bullshit, and if it sticks, it sticks.
It's tough because everybody's a critic and everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. And it was like, I built what I'll still say today is, I think in Hollywood, the most prolific change that Hollywood had ever seen. And like, I fought the world because nobody wanted it to happen there. And I remember I was telling this to Nigel last podcast. I remember Mel Gibson calling me up because I'd helped him when he went through his really hard time, and nobody in Hollywood would talk to him. And I did. But I was Jewish, and people who weren't Jewish wouldn't talk to him because of his anti-Semitic supposedly comments he made. And he said, dude, I didn't even get as much shit as he's like, well, who'd you piss off? They're rewriting the same story over and over every day. And it was like, I didn't want to get out of bed. I remember like I like pull the covers off and just dreaded looking at my phone to see like what was published. That's the hardest time ever, because we were talking about earlier, failing for yourself is like you fail for yourself. But when you fail in front of the whole world and you trip in front of the whole world,
that's all you can see.
Right? And you think it's like over because you think like, oh, the whole world just saw me fail. I literally like everybody knows me as a failure. I mean, that's how I felt. I don't know if you.
No, it feels like that.
When I went anywhere, even though nobody probably was saying anything about me, I felt like, oh, they're all talking about me. They're all talking about what a failure I am. Did you feel that way? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, it's like I'm on social media, so it's like anywhere I went, anyone that had TikTok would just see me, and that's like the first thing that they would say.
I mean, in your case, the whole world was actually talking about you everywhere
Yeah.
you went. In my case, I just thought they were. So, okay, you took that and in a, obviously nobody expected. I think you at some point said you were never going to fight again. And all of a sudden you decided not only were you going to fight, but you were going to fight in the hardest sport there ever was, and definitely the most gruesome, and definitely the most physically challenging, and definitely the most dangerous, in bare knuckle boxing, which is boxing with no gloves. You know, obviously having done social media and regular fights, and I did all of Jake's original fights. Like, we picked opponents with Jake that were, people who had been retired in their 40s. Jake was in his young 20s. They were kind of out of shape. They had lost their last 5 or 6 fights. They'd never boxed, so it was somewhat of a fair fight. You came out, and I don't think anybody ever did it before. I don't know if anybody will ever do it again, but you came out and said, no, I want to pick a fighter in his prime that's 3-0, who's about my age, who is actually a bare knuckle, not just a boxer, but an actual bare knuckle boxer, 3-0, named the Cut Man, and fight him in real life.
I thought it was the worst idea ever.
Like, what was going through your head? Like, tell me how the failure of in front of the whole world led to you doing something that, like, if you walked in that ring and lasted 3 seconds and got knocked out, the world would have given you respect.
That's what my brain was thinking when I went in there. It was like a win-win situation for me. I had the balls to step into like a bare knuckle boxing ring against somebody in their prime. If I lost, it was expected. If I won, shocks the world. I remember seeing clips of bare knuckle, like with Mike Perry, Luke Rockhold, like Eddie Alvarez, Chad Mendes, like all the old UFC fighters doing it. And I remember seeing it like all over my timeline because of how gruesome, bloody, and viral like this shit would go.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Brad that I wanted to do it. And he said that it was a dumb idea.
He called me and said, because for those you don't know, we own bare knuckle. Brad was actually at more or less bare knuckle 1 with me. So, and I still remember he was shaking because you and Brad have in common that he also grew up fighting a lot.
Well, the adrenaline in that,
And
when you're in those fights, it's like...
We went to this, we're sitting there the very first fight, and I just remember being in the front row and you hear this, right? Which
You
don't
hear every contact.
And I looked over and Brad was like, I'm like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I just like feel like I'm in a fight. Like, but tell me, so you took this, the whole world is like, you become a meme. The whole world is like fucking descending down upon you and kind of saying, all right, Bryce, like, ha ha ha, you're the guy who could fight. And now you're stepping in the ring. And tell me about that. What was going through your head, the journey, everything you can remember?
I was so hungry throughout my entire camp, but I trained my ass off. Like actually worked with like Lorenzo Hunt, the 2-time BKFC champ, 185 and 205. He showed me like the difference between boxing and BKFC with like the little bit of wrestling that you can do. So working with him gained my confidence, but I was so hungry. I wasn't really thinking of G Perez. I wasn't thinking of the fighter himself. So I wasn't really nervous at all. But then once I had my meal after my weigh-in, and then I was fully like regenerated, I started thinking, I'm like, oh shit, this fight's tomorrow. My nerves are kicking in like crazy. I'm always like antsy, like bouncing my legs, like, oh God, like I'm actually about to do this. Day of the fight comes along, I'm not allowed to leave my dressing room. They're like, you can't walk around. So I was sitting there for about 2.5 hours, just watching all of the fights, watching all these people get their face battered up. I'm trying to get both of you guys in the back room, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do this.
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
watching those fights in the locker room was like, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, no.
I wish those weren't on. And then one of the girls who was right
remember.
before Bryce
Oh my
stuck her
God.
face in.
I remember she had no
stuck
teeth.
her face in and said hi, and all of her teeth were gone. Her face looked like she had been through a blender. She's like, "Don't worry, you'll do great." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Well, actually,
Yeah.
if I remember what she did. She stuck her head in because I remember I was trying to calm you down. I was giving you military breathing exercises, if you remember, like making you meditate. And she stuck her head in, and she's like, "OnlyFans, here I come!" And she had all her teeth gone and bloody, and she was making a joke, but she literally looked like she'd gotten.
Yeah. So no,
Really?
like the nerves were so fucking heavy there. I was freaking out. Started warming up. The nerves went away for a little bit. And then the guy goes, like every single fight, the guy would come in and say like, "All right, you're in 3. All right, you're in 4 fights. All right, you're in 2 fights. All right, you're next." And it's like so fast. It was going so fast. I was like, "Oh my God, like I'm about to do this." And I'm sitting there about to do my walkout, shitting bricks, like doing the breathing. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I here? What am I doing? What am I doing?
Dude, you told me. You said, "What the fuck am I doing, man?" I was like, "It's not too late. It's not too late."
You know? And then as I'm doing the walkout, instant character goes back into it. I'm like, I'm in. So I walk out there, I'm doing like this thing. I'm like doing the Conor McGregor walk, but on the inside, shitting bricks. I step in there, I greet you, Dave Feldman, like the refs. I then gave like G a little head nod. I was like, all right, please don't hurt me. And then I'm sitting across from him. Lorenzo's like behind me as they're doing the intros. And he's like, all right, you're good. You got this. Remember what we trained for. Breathe. And he's like doing all this shit. And I'm like, okay. I'm more scared of Lorenzo than I am G Perez. If I lose in front of Lorenzo, he'll probably kick my ass.
It's a good
So then I
good
got in there,
motivation.
and our entire game plan was like move around the ring, and as soon as he comes in, I hit him. And in the first 10 seconds, he came into my range, and that's when I dropped him in the first 10 seconds. And that right there clicked in my head. I'm like, I won. That was all I needed. That's the clip that everybody's gonna see. I won.
So then the pressure was off,
Yeah.
and then you were just like,
But
"Oh,
then he
now,
kept-
now there's no winning."
Yeah, but then
I mean, losing.
he kept fucking hitting me, and I was like, oh wow, this guy's hitting me really hard. So I remember one time he uppercutted me 4 times in the right eye or in the left eye, and my vision was completely slanted. And I was looking at him, and he was like coming towards me, like while I'm looking at him like this. I'm like, oh my fucking God. I was like, I'm either gonna get knocked out right now, or I'm gonna foul this guy and like hurt him. so I grabbed him by the legs, picked him up, and just threw him. And I was like, all right. I bought myself some time. He's like grabbing the back of his head. I don't remember hitting the back of his head, but he was grabbing the back of his head. I was like, yes, I have time. All right, vision, come back, because my vision was still completely slanted. Like he hit
my
my
God.
eye in the right spot like 4 times, so my vision was just like sideways.
I was wondering, I never asked you why you did that. And
Yeah.
then now I know. Like, I remember when you basically wrestle moved him.
Yeah.
Like,
It was
yeah.
because I couldn't see. The entire first round I couldn't see.
Wow. So back to before the fight though, like, so this is a common theme in your life. You started, so you became this social media star phenomenon because, you basically had kind of, I'll say failed is a broad term on our show, but you failed at, being popular and having friends. And you had all these bullies that you had this just feeling inside that you wanted to change. And as I kind of said, we talked about earlier, if you can't change your outside, change your inside. So you went and created your own world, made your own world using that as your motivation, the failure in high school, right? And you become one of the most famous people in the world and very successful. And then you go to the next level to become a boxer, and you become overnight, like, as you said, the biggest meme, and, like you couldn't go anywhere without being the boxing guy that lost, basically. But again, instead of giving up, and that's kind of what the show is about, is for anybody who's ready to give up and thinks like, oh, I failed. Well, you didn't fail, you just had a failure, and success is the things you find between failures and not giving up. And so you turned around, and instead of saying, I'm never fighting again, which you did say for a minute, but you're like, inside you knew, you're like, I got to go do something bigger and harder. So it motivated you to go train so hard that you decided to go into BKFC. And basically, because in your head you won, you actually once again willed it to happen. You took that failure and in your head willed success, and you actually knocked him out, and you became a BKFC fighter.
Kind of badass.
Yeah. How's that feel now?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's actually, nobody even mentions the Austin McBroom shit anymore.
Right?
But I do, like, for myself, kind of want that rematch. Just to knock him out, like, clean.
Well, you know, what Dave is negotiating now for Austin to fight G.
That'd be an amazing
Part of the
fight.
deal is if he wins, then obviously he fights you.
Bare knuckle.
Yeah.
I would love that.
So that's, I don't think we're close, but close. I was negotiating first and turned it over to Dave. And
Well, I know for a fact Austin McBroom needs the money. So, like, Austin McBroom, if you want that money fight, me versus you rematch, bare knuckle, you better beat G Press.
Well, we're hopefully he'll close it. It's all waiting on him now. Offers out, and it's hopefully any day now.
When you won, your speech, they gave you the microphone. They asked you, all right, what's next? How you feeling, Bryce?
Oh, I said I am a boxer, I am a fighter, and I've always claimed to be a fucking fighter. said that shit like, boom, mic drop.
I think you actually did drop the mic.
I threw it back to the guy.
Yeah. So, all right. You've lived such a small part of your life, and yet you've had like the epitome of like using failure to succeed. Kind of for the audience. I mean, I think we all have our bare knuckle fight in us, if you know what I mean. Like whether it's an actual bare knuckle fight or having to, face failure and stand up and go do the scariest thing in the world, right? Like, as you said, you were like scared to death. I remember when that girl stuck her head in, I was like, oh God, you're already scared. And then she's like basically the poster child of what not to do. I remember that moment, I was like, oh, this is like the worst moment because you were already freaking.
I thought your mom was going to kill me.
Yeah, your mom was scared.
My mom was there. I don't know. I literally told her, I was like, you don't have to come to this.
But then like you did it. And like you said, even if you had lost, you would have won. And just getting in that ring was the most important, just showing up. And that's what people, I think, so often don't realize and forget in life is showing up is half of it. Nigel and I were just talking about how in life, whether you believe in God or you're spiritual or you just want to just look at what's inside. Nigel called it an energy he sees inside of people. He was relating it to dancers and people in American Idol, but it's like you poke a hole and let the light in and kind of the universe does the rest. You just have to show up, right? And kind of maybe you can give some words of inspiration for other people who are facing their hard time and like it's hard for them to step up and pick and say, okay, I'm going to do my bare knuckle, whatever that may be. For them, it may just even be getting up and going to their job, going to school, telling someone they love them, quitting their job, taking a job, whatever it is. Like, what would you say? Like, because you've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, as I have. And, without that moment, things would be different right now, right? And so what would you say to someone who's like they're hesitating on taking that moment?
Everybody loves the underdog story. As I was going in there, I mean, the whole world, as much as they wanted to see me win, they thought I was going to lose. And of course, I was fucking shitting bricks doing it. I was like the most nervous I think I've ever been in my entire life. And I still did it, but it was because I believed in myself. Blocked out everything that everybody was saying, and I just did my thing.
And times you wanted to give up and just almost said no?
I didn't want to walk out there. I was telling Ryan, I was like, I don't want to do this. As I'm sitting in the locker room, about to go out there, I wanted to back out, but I manned up, did it, got it done. The win was the most rewarding thing in the world.
It was epic.
And what was the voice inside saying to you? Like the voice, there was one that's saying like, and I know that voice and that feeling and that pit in your stomach is like, I don't want to do this. I want to give up. It'd be so much easier to just walk away. But what was the other voice saying?
You got this. You got this. Like, you trained your ass off for this. You did the hard part, which was making weight. You did everything leading up to this fight. You worked as hard as you possibly could. Now it's just time to put that all in the ring.
And do you remember any specific thing you did to push that voice to be louder than the one that was telling you to walk away?
I was saying it out loud too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Just repeating out loud, you got this. You got this.
You got this.
That's actually great advice because they do say, saying things out loud to yourself. A lot of people, like motivational speakers, will be like, yeah, every morning you wake up, you should get in the mirror and tell yourself you love each other 10 times. Or you love yourself 10 times and, or you're proud of yourself 10 times. And I actually read this crazy stat yesterday that you just reminded me of. So they did a study at Harvard and it was with mice, actually, I think it was rats, where they put them in a water tank to see how long they would tread water before they died, which sounds awful, right? It is awful, but the stat is crazy. So it was 15 minutes. They put all these rats in the water, and after 15 minutes, that was the average time, they would just give up and die. And it was about trying to figure out, like, I don't know, it had something to do with military and how long people could actually tread water, and they thought it had some correlation as they used to do all these experiments. But that wasn't what was so interesting. Is what they would do is they'd take a bunch of the rats at like 14 minutes and 52 seconds and pull them out for like 2 hours, and then stick them back in and see how long they'd last the second time. Can you take a guess how long they lasted the second time? And then they started doing this, over and over with these rats, where they'd give
Half
them,
the time.
so you think 7.5 minutes?
Yeah.
What do you think, Brad?
18 minutes?
2.5 days.
What?
2.5 days. The rats on average treaded water for 2.5 days before they died.
They give them test?
Nope. No. I was about to make a comment.
What'd they do?
No.
That's it?
You know what they did? Nothing. What they did, and they had to come up with this, like, how the fuck is this possible? Like, the average rat is lasting 15 minutes. Not one of them lasted a day. But then we took the same rats out, right? Nothing different, same litters, same, right before they would die at 15 minutes. Give them a break and stick them back in, and now they live 2.5 days. It was the hope and belief that something was going to save them. Because they had been in there and they were right at that moment where they were going to give up, right? Because 15 minutes was the point. So they waited till right when they knew in the rat's head, on average, they were going to give up, and they'd pull them out of this tank, right? And say, oh my God, the rat was saved, right? So now you got a rat who in his head, when he's about to give up, he's like, oh, something's going to save me. It shows you if a rat can go from 15 minutes to 2.5 days, what can the human mind do when it doesn't give up, when it believes in itself? And that to me, like when you talk about it, is like, it kind of just, it reminded me of that, study. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
So Brad, I want to talk about you. So you come from a very known family, Baskin and Robbins, for those of you who know ice cream, and basically created the ice cream franchise. And, Brad Baskin. And Brad and I are not just dear friends, but we're basically co-parents. My other best friend is my ex-wife and mother of my child. It's Brad's significant other, and we have a 8-year-old together. So Brad, me and her basically raise him. Tommy, and he's the best. And we know each other very well, and you're always an inspiration to me, because I watch you like balance 5 kids plus Bryce. So that Bryce is like the equivalent of 5 more, like 10 kids.
True.
Top residential real estate broker. You've been on $1 million listing multiple times. That's obviously your company. You sell $20 million houses like they're butter, and you manage Bryce, and I don't know, you launched an energy drink of your own. Alcohol vodka drink that you put together. You've been an incredible entrepreneur. Like, what do you think is in your mind, thinking about failure and success? There's a fine line, and you've gone through a lot of it. When I look at it, I just see success. In your life, I just see success, because it's like commercial real estate, boom, success. I watch you go, no, I want to go to residential, boom, immediately overnight. Biggest firm in Los Angeles, biggest broker in Los Angeles. Like, Ryan, should I do this management thing? Boom, you're managing the number one, I wouldn't call Bryce a social media star anymore. I just call him talent, number one entertainment talent, in the world. You just seem like whatever you put your mind to, you just succeed at. Like, I don't know, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but when Brad was married to his wife, when he got divorced, he was overweight.
Fat.
He was fat. He was large, and which was surprising to a lot of us, because all of us who knew in high school knew Brad. He was very in shape, and he was very overweight. I don't want to take your thunder, but I just remember a year later, he won like the biggest bodybuilding contest, and was like Mr. America or Mr. Universe or one of those. So like, I don't know, I look at all that and I'm like, you can do anything you want, but like, tell me, in there, was there failure? And if there was, what was the most significant failure that affected you, and how did it define your life?
Well, first of all, thank you for everything you said. It's
true.
I've never heard myself summed up like that, and I don't know, I've never seen myself like that. I mean, when I started out in commercial real estate, the way we made money and got leads was cold calling. And I was at Marks and Millichap, and it's basically like a boiler room, And you just make calls all day, and they would track the calls, and whoever had the most calls and connections at the end of the day was, they were like awarded, and it was like everyone talked about it. So I was making like 120, 130 calls a day to people I didn't know, and basically hearing "fuck you, don't call me again" like 110 times. And the ratio changes because you learn how to do it, and it's like verbal jujitsu, right? So it's like you get beaten down, and I wanted to quit, and I was like, this is just, I don't understand how anyone does this. But I don't like losing. I don't accept it. So I'll just keep losing until I find a way to beat that system or to get the overhand on whatever it is. So yeah, like I said, your ratio changes. You start, making 120 calls and you're, getting like 2 meetings, and then it becomes, you're making 100 calls and getting 6 meetings because your calls are lasting longer because you're connecting. And then it's, 90 calls and you have 12 meetings, and then pretty soon you're making only 30 or 40 calls because you're out pitching. You end up getting these meetings. So it's like, the tide changes, right? And you just grow your skills.
So you were like failing 115 times a day, basically.
Oh man.
And using that to learn to then only fail 30 times a day, to then only fail 20 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of what it sounds like?
Yeah. And this is, as I said, this is after I lost my job. I'm married. I decided to go into real estate, and, I'm all proud. I have this new job. I'm getting dressed up in these suits, and you look like, oh yeah, I'm killing it. You look in the mirror, like, wake up. I'm the lion in the jungle. I would tell myself. I go in there and just feel like a piece of shit. Immediately by like 9:30, I was just like, oh God, how much time do I have to do this? And you can not make the calls, right? You don't have a boss watching over you in real estate. So people are like, oh yeah, you have all the time in the world. You're your own boss. Sure, but you don't have any money guaranteed. So, for like 8 months, I had nothing coming in. And then I would get a lead and it would go great, and I'd be able to close it, but I'd bring someone else with me because I wasn't confident enough to really seal the deal and get the signatures. So I'd bring all these other agents in with me. So I'm getting like, 10% of my own deal, 20% of this deal and that. And then finally I was like, dude, fuck it. I've built enough deals. I have enough stories to tell. I'm going on my own. I'm going to do this. And I just started, getting things done. And it felt really, really amazing to turn that corner.
What I think, to me, the most inspirational story, and that one's for sure, because there's so many people who are probably facing that in their own life, whether it's, boxers starting who would feel like they're just training every day, or people who are at brokerages, or, they're all feeling that. But like, so you were super in shape your whole life, going through a divorce, which is obviously tough. And you're as you said, you were fat. And somehow, do you have the picture in your phone? I mean, we can put up, so hopefully right here somewhere.
It is my party trick. I don't want to pull it out.
You should pull it out. Can you pull it out? You have it?
He wants to pull it out. He's
saying
he doesn't want to.
Don't make me.
I want to pull it out. So as you guys can see in this picture, that's a year, 1 year. So you go from what a lot of people would say are pretty overweight to like, you look like you're 24 years old. You're the most ripped. You're like, you. I know that as we talked about, they drug tested you for everything. You had nothing. No substances. It was all natural. To me, that you went from, were you failing and somehow succeeded, or like, tell me about that. What was going through you? Where were you in life? Like,
professionally, I was doing okay. I didn't really have much drive. Unhappy in my marriage. We just sort of grew up together, best friends, amazing kids. 4 kids, raising them together, and just something. We just weren't on the same page anymore. With the kids and just sort of with everything. And I went to this reunion from my high school, and I saw these, a whole bunch of girls and guys I grew up with. And I came home and I told my ex-wife, and she doesn't mince words, which I love. She's just straight up about everything. It's really refreshing. If you ask her a question, you're going to get the answer. Sometimes you shouldn't ask. So anyway, I told her, I said, look, God, these people really fell off. So-and-so just looked terrible. It looked like a handbag, and she was fat, and this and that. And I was just thrashing people like an asshole, right? Because I was unhappy myself, so it's easy to put it out there and just be, mean. And she said, I'll never forget it. She said, yeah, you really shouldn't talk. And I was like, what? She said, yeah, you're fat. You're really fat. Like, you're not who you used to be, and you're not looking that great. And I was like, oh my God, dude.
Then you look in the mirror, you're like, True.
Yeah, no, no. That's the best part. So I was like, fuck you. Like, I'm good, you know?
I'm fucking jacked.
And then that night I didn't sleep in the room, obviously, you know? Went out to my back house and was like, oh my God. And I'll never forget, I took off my clothes to go to bed and I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, I am a fat piece of shit right now. Like, she's totally right. So
I don't know what's more funny, the fact that you didn't know you were that bad, or that you needed her to say it.
I love your guys' relationship.
I like how we can laugh at my failures. Yours are so serious.
Hey, I was fat too. I was fat too. I wasn't that fat, but I was fat.
We also weren't that jacked. Yeah, so I just decided right then and there. I actually woke up in the morning, went in the room, I said, "Thank you so much. I'm gonna do it now." Like, I'm glad you said that. So I printed a picture of myself when I was 18. We were in the jacuzzi, at my friend's house. Like, we just graduated. I just took this picture, and holding this red cup, and I thought I was a stud, and I was jacked. Like, I was in great shape. I told her I'm gonna get like this, and she said, "You're out of your mind, dude. Like, have a more realistic goal." She's like, "You're fat, you're hairy. Like, it's not a thing. You're not gonna get like that."
How'd you get rid of the hairy, by the way?
I just went away when I got jacked. No.
This is the thing called razors.
Laser hair.
We could cut that out.
No,
So
thing.
keep going.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're fat.
I was not hairy.
You
That
got
was a
laser
lie.
hair?
Yeah, I did. Okay, we're cutting that out though. So yeah. No, so she said, you're fat. You're old. You're not. It's not a thing. You're not gonna be able
Fat,
to do
you're
it.
hairy, you're old, yeah.
You're hairy. And so
I feel like
I print-
the
printed the
next
picture.
show we put you guys in couples counseling. But okay, keep going.
That's crazy.
Anyway, so I showed her the picture. I said, I'm gonna get like this. She said it's not possible. So I printed 2 more copies of the picture. I put one up in my mirror in our bathroom. I put one at my desk, and I put one at the gym. I went that day, got a gym membership. It's Equinox West LA, so I got an executive membership so that I could keep the same locker all the time. The only reason I did it was more money. I'm cheap. I did it so that I could have the picture there every day when I opened up my locker. So I started working out there for like 4 months, and I was just like, no results. I was wearing sweats, thinking I could like do like the boxer routine and just sweat it out. And like, I knew what I was doing, so I was a stud back in the day. It was not working, and I was getting cold calls from trainers at the gym saying, "Oh yeah, you have 2 free sessions. You have 2 free sessions." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, dude. I know what I'm doing. Stop." And then one day I just realized, okay, this is not happening fast enough. I'm going to do it. Went to the gym, had the free training session, got my body measurements, and I was 28% body fat. And she's like, "Yeah, you're obese." It's like, sick. It's not news, but yeah, can we fix that? So she's like, she says, "Yeah, 100% we can." So 3 days a week, I start working out for like a month. And then this guy walks in the gym, this huge guy named Victor Akani, I'm good friends with now. And I said, "Dude, who is that guy? I'm just massive." And she said, "His name's Victor. He has his pro card." I said, "What's a pro card?" She said, "It's in bodybuilding. You become a pro, you qualify, you get your pro card." And I said, "I want to get my pro card. I want to look like that." She's like, "Well, you can do it." I said, "Well, I thought to myself, this chick's on drugs. That's a lot." She said, "I swear you can do it. You got to train 5 days a week. You have to listen to everything I say, be accountable with your food, change your lifestyle, sleep schedule, no more drinking, cut out the weed." And I said, "Okay, I'm in, let's do it." We picked a date. Actually, it was Victor's show. Victor had a show like 9 months later. And I trained for the show, and then I won. I actually competed. My kids were in the front row. It was physique competition. Like you said, totally tested, all natural. And I won. I won overall, novice, and what's the one for older people? I forgot. I was 37.
Geriatric?
No, I was 37 masters. So I won masters as well. So 3 first place trophies, staying up with my hardware, kids in the front row. My parents were there, and I just felt like I was on top of the world.
So you went from like where you just felt terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
And would you say that like how'd that change your whole life? Like, do you feel like that changed the trajectory of your life?
It definitely did. First of all, sales. I mean, when you look good and you feel good, you sell. People want to be with you. They want to hang out with you. They want to be like you. They want to buy things from you. That's just unfortunately, like, people do care about aesthetics that much, right?
Yep.
So, I felt better about myself. I was more presentable. People seemed to respond to me differently. It also taught me that you don't control much in the world. You know, a lot of things just happen to you. You can't control, but the things you can control are what you put in your mouth and whether or not the weight moves, and you're the one that moves it or doesn't, right? 45 pounds is always 45 pounds. A calorie is always a calorie. 3,600 calories is a pound. You can be in a deficit. You can be in a surplus. You run it. That's the one thing you control. And it's not like other sports where you lose if somebody else doesn't pass the ball or somebody misses the shot or the coach doesn't do this or that. I mean, it's just you and the weight. So you determine if you win or not. And that just sort of powered me to take control of my life.
What would you tell that people out there who are struggling, whether it's with weight or diet, or even some people just, get very, when you stop working out, I've been through this in my life when I up and down, where you get like kind of lazy and you don't, it's hard to even get up sometimes and just do any kind of exercise. And
Yeah.
you had to make such an extreme change. What advice would you give?
I would just say, you can change it. I mean, if you'll see my picture, it was pretty hectic. The human body's an amazing thing, and you have to want it. If you want it badly enough, you can do it. There's nothing stopping you but you, really.
You feel different, like other than looking different and like knowing that you look different. Do you feel like, do you physically like? Do you have more energy? Do you like?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I used to wake up and I realized too, right before this whole thing with my ex-wife calling me fat, I would lay on the bed and lay down to pull my socks on because I couldn't lean over and actually get to my feet. And this is not a joke. I know you're gonna laugh at that. But like, no, like I swear, I realized. I realized. Such a dick. No, but I realized that like I couldn't like do things normally. It was so weird. I didn't see it happening. I didn't notice. Oh, I'm losing flexibility. Oh, I can't move the same way. It just was gone.
Flexibility.
And well,
Sorry, it's just that I can't imagine him being fat because I've known him since he's like been a gym freak. So like thinking about him going through those struggles it's like it goes in my head. That's hilarious.
Well, you and I
not
both,
that you were fat. It's just like that
you and I
went through
both
those
know if he
struggles.
eats like a French fry, he goes to the gym for like 4 hours.
Oh my
the next
God!
day.
After he ate that cheeseburger, he's going to the gym for 5 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
why didn't get cheese on my burger?
Oh, okay.
You
so
did.
3 hours.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, no, he got the cheese. That's why he looks like that, and I look like.
That's crazy because you have no idea what I'm hiding under. This is why I wear.
That's why you're
sweatshirts.
hiding it.
No, I wear sweatshirts because I'm not like a cocky.
Dude, you're the
piece of
before
shit.
picture.
I'm the before.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you guys hear this? Here, go back to my fight day. That's what I look like right now. Still.
So
put on my
Bryce,
bodybuilding picture.
do me a favor. You've got a lot of people who listen to your words, and you have people obviously who like to make fun of you. You have people who listen to you. But you got a whole world listening, more than 99.99999% of the whole world. Like you got 50 million plus people kind of watching and listening to you, and you shared a lot with us. Like, but I think what's most important for us on this show is to give people hope that a failure is not failing at life. And just throw out things that you can think about that will help people the most, no matter what walk of life, famous, not famous, big, small, like things that like you feel, you think, like tell me what that is.
Man, I'm not that wise, man. Some days you feel like shit, some days you don't. It's life. Stop listening to people, believe in yourself, and go to the gym. It actually does like change your mental state.
Also, it's just a snapshot in time. Just because you fail, it doesn't define the rest of you. It's just, okay, this is what happened today.
You can have one bad day, and then the next day is like the best day of your life, and then it can go right back to shitty, or you could just be on this high of like, it's like life's a roller coaster. It really is.
Highs and lows, right?
Highs and lows.
So
Love the highs. The highs are awesome. The lows suck.
I think, wouldn't you say though, the lows in your life, and it sounds like in yours too, are what led to the highs? Think about the highest high.
Because that loop, it goes like this, and then,
Right.
in a roller coaster, you just shoot right back up.
Yeah, the failure is fuel. I mean, when you fail, you can lay down and stay in your house and cry about it. But if you can turn to something positive and allow it to, drive you say, I'm not going to be like this. This is not going to work. This is not the conclusion. You know, that's how you turn around.
Yeah, it's for both of you, for all of us. That's kind of been this show has been, it's looking at, like I said, success is the things that happen between failure, because you got to try and you got to, achieve. And I'm sure it's not the last time. You're not going to win always. It's not the last thing you're going to go try at, and you're not going to always win. Like we're all going to try and fail again, right? We're not going to try to fail, but it's life. Life is about trying over and over again, failing, getting back up, and trying again. You just went and did BKFC, which means you're going to probably go do something even crazier, and you're not going to win at all of them, right? Nobody does. It's impossible. I think it's just, for me, it's always been the same thing. Get back up, do it again. Don't care what other people think. Move forward, right? And give us your last minute advice on failure to the world.
I think we've said it so many times.
Is that why they call you the bull? Because you never give up? Kind of run through it?
I don't know where that came from.
Head first.
He's like,
I don't know.
Bulldoze
Maybe it's because,
everything.
you run. Maybe it's because when you were fat, your stomach was hanging down,
Like a
so
bull.
you just were walking like this.
No, you're right. It's probably that.
That's
Yeah.
probably what it was.
I can't figure it out.
I just said it. It's probably the stomach thing.
No, bulls are pretty strong usually. No, that's like a cow.
No,
It's not Brad the cow.
It's not. That definitely is not a thing.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Brad the cow.
That was Brad the bull.
No, the cow has a ring though.
Yeah, that just ended. That thing just ended. No.
Well, I have the pleasure of having two brothers, and hopefully you guys today got to see and hear, whether you're watching or listening, a little bit of insight into Bryce and Brad's lives of, you got, here a person who has 50 million people hanging on his every word. And as you're hearing, he's failed, and it's those failures that pushed him to go win and pushed him to get back up and do it again. And it's led to his biggest successes. And as we say in our quotes, it's, kind of, may you know the sweetness of success, but the darkness of defeat. Neither one exists without each other. And, we're hopefully here to show people the world isn't all Instagram bows and, perfect pictures. And that's not how it works. So,
I have one more thing.
yes.
Because this is what I actually did in the beginning. I remembered. You need small goals. So the goal wasn't to win the bodybuilding competition in the beginning. It wasn't to lose, 60 pounds. It was to show up every single day at the gym, and it was to make every meal was weigh and measure the food, just small. Every day was a small victory.
Taking a step.
Yeah. And then
Baby
piece
steps.
together. Yeah. And I would take weekly progress photos and then didn't look at the weekly.
Right.
My trainer would show them to me after we had 8 weeks.
Yep.
So you could see the transformation. And then once you see it working,
Yeah.
it's more fuel again. So just the small victories.
That's the best advice is, because it is. Success is a bunch of small victories that then lead to the big, right? And
Because
so,
if not, if you're just looking for the big picture, you're going to give up. If
Right.
it takes a year, if it takes 6 months and you don't
Yeah.
see that happening, you're going to go,
you just got to show up. Half of
Yeah.
it is showing up.
Yeah.
Every day, showing up, not giving up, and just being there and letting the world come to you. Because it's not going to come to you if you sit at home,
Right.
right? Like you said, there's calories in, calories out. There's how many pounds you're lifting. 45 pounds doesn't change how much it weighs, right? But that's true in any part of life. Like I said, I'm blessed to have you guys as brothers and friends. I'm going to tell one story just because a lot of people ask me. So Brad and I were obviously went to high school together, as you guys hear, and went to college together and kind of bumped into each other on and off in life. And I hadn't seen him in probably 20 years. And my now ex-wife and best friend who I have a child with says, do you remember this guy, Brad Baskin? And I said, I do. Why? And she's like, he wants to have dinner with you. So he wants to have dinner with me. Why? I haven't seen him forever, since college. And well, past college, but shortly. And she said, because, we met at this park and he won't go out with me without your permission. And he heard that I was your ex-wife. And I was like, wow, I didn't know people like that in this world existed. So he came to my house with Jess. He had dinner. She went in the other room to go play with Tommy. And he literally just looked me in the eyes and he's like, look, if you said no, I would totally understand. It's a small world. We know each other really well. We knew each other. We hadn't talked in years, but I wouldn't fault you if you said you didn't want me to date her. But I'm not going to go, I won't go on a date with her unless you give your blessing. And, turns out they lived a block from each other. and there was a park between their house, and they both had their kids and met at this park, and they went and had coffee. And as Brad's saying, oh yeah, I grew up in Brentwood, and she's like, oh, my ex-husband grew up in Brentwood. And she's like, Brad says, he's like, what's his name? And she's like, oh, I mean, Brentwood's a big place. He's like, no, it's really not. And then she said, well, his name's Ryan Cowan. He's like, oh shit, we can't finish this coffee. And so since then I inherited a brother, and the three of us we do everything together, everything, our trips, our family. We have like the most beautiful life together. And it's been a blessing. And since Bryce has joined, we kind of all do everything together now. It's like one big dysfunctional but amazing family.
I'm bleeding a lot right now.
Are you really? What'd you do? How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Who'd you punch?
Dude, I don't remember doing that.
You're gonna get sued again?
Here's the dysfunction.
We're just talking, and all of a
Can I just
sudden,
get a napkin and then we can continue this?
so what I realized is, had I not failed at my marriage and you not failed at your marriage, we wouldn't be here as brothers, best friends, and none of us actually. You wouldn't be with Bryce. We wouldn't be connected.
I'm really glad you guys failed your marriages.
I mean, you're kind of like the
Don't
product.
worry, you got one coming.
You realize that? You think he's got one? You think he's gonna only have one failed marriage?
That's crazy.
I'm going for 3 to 4.
You guys are saying that right in front of me. Stop it. No, it's not.
That's so nice of you guys. Thank you.
We believe in you guys a lot. I give you guys 10 years is a really good long marriage these days,
Yeah.
right? You guys have at least 10.
We got
years.
at least 10.
I was just gonna say though, what's funny is Bryce is like the product of 2 failed marriages.
That's
True.
a stretch.
No, I like that. True.
You are.
Hell yeah.
Think about that.
That's a stretch.
Good job, guys.
I don't even know what to say to this. Shit just got weird.
I love you guys, and I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate you opening up the way you did. Hopefully we can help some people. That's the point of the show, is to help people see real life, not what's painted with those
Don't
perfect
give up.
brushes.
Do not give up.
Don't give up. Thank you for joining us in failure. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Brad. To fight another day. Get up, get back in that arena, marred with sweat and dust and tears, and keep fighting. All right?
Peace.
Thanks.